afternoon, and welcome to our Glendale City Council workshop. This meeting is for council members to review and discuss important issues, projects, and future council meeting agenda items. It's a work study session only and allows the council to hear input from city staff. No action will be taken at this workshop, and there will not be an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is streaming live on Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages and the city's cable television station, Glendale Channel 11. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Glendale City Council workshop session of January 27, 2026. This meeting is called to order. I'd like to note that the mayor's absence is excused. He is attending the U.S. Conference of Mayors. With that, I believe all the rest of the council members are present. If you'd please make a note, Ms. Bowers. Ms. Bowers, will you please introduce item number 1?
Downtown Campus Reinvestment Project Update.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor and Council. On behalf of the DCRP team, we're here to present update number 39. Today is going to be just a quick round robin of what we're doing on the site and the interiors, and then the look ahead for next month's activities. So with each and every week we have in front of us, the picture gets more and more complete, so we're really excited about that. We are approaching our last 90 to 120 days of effort on the project right now. So our goal of middle part of April for substantial completion is intact. We're working closely with the contractor every day, and we're putting in the hours that we need to do that to get there. The park will take a little bit longer because we've established a middle of May for that. But altogether, we're holding on track, and we can show you what some of the current things are happening on site. Just briefly, I wanted to go back to the exterior design and the skin of the building. As things are getting more and more complete, there's just some small minor refinements here and there, which are adding details, but we're really proud of how the facade has come together and how it takes on the light, especially this time of year. And we just wanted to include these photos to show you how really exciting this skin is with the various shade elements, the various details, and the components and how they came together and just how they've been assembled is just really, really nice. And you can see now in these photographs, the first level and earthwork that's going around where the landscaping is going to be is still ongoing. And we also have some metal panel work that will be continuing, but what you're seeing is pretty much the completion of the skin design in whole. This is taken across the street where the bank building is, and you can see how prominent the facility will be addressing Glendale Avenue and giving us that transparent and just the opening that we didn't have before with the original design. Remember, the building originally had sort of enclosed itself and sort of turned its back on Glendale Avenue, and with this design now you can see how with all the glazing and the features that'll be on the first floor really begin to address activity on that ground plane. Very noticeably in the lower left-hand corner of the photograph, we're actually starting to plant some of the trees that are going to be in the plaza. So it won't be long before the plaza takes shapes, stairways, everything that leads up to the main entrance of the building. Some other activity that's simultaneously going on is the bowl grading for the amphitheater. This has been in the works for several months now as far as getting all the site works around it, site walls, everything that for conveyance and people, ramps, stairs, etc. on the perimeter. But now we're really focusing on the actual seating area and the lawn portion and the grading that goes with that. So this photograph's about 10 days old now, so there's been more significant work done as far as pouring the bench seating that'll be in place, but you get a sense of the scale of the activities and the grading that's happening. It's really coming together, and as of today, most of the pours that create the amphitheater concrete seating, the permanent seating area is in place. So, and then that big mound that you see on the right side of the aisle there is being leveled off. So before long, we'll have the grades in place, and then we'll be working on the pedestrian and / fire lane that goes from Glen Drive all the way to Glendale Avenue. That'll be the main connector between the entire site. Here's another view looking from the bridge over the stage area and looking back towards Velma Teague Library. So you can get a sense of the scale of the grading that's happening. A lot of work. And then immediately behind the amphitheater is the courtyard that connects the chambers to City Hall from the garden level. And most of this will be a combination of hardscape, which means essentially concrete, and planted areas. So there'll be lots of little growies and a few trees in there in between, and it's going to be really a nice patio between the two buildings. I think it's one spot in the building that I think people are going to really want to gravitate to and spend some time during their day. More exciting work in the interior of the building, starting with level 1 and move our way up to the 4th floor. Again, back to the picture being more complete now. The ceiling work is definitely at a whole nother level. What you're seeing in the middle is, well, they're actually putting around the trim pieces for the acoustical ceiling that'll be baffled pieces. They're essentially like little planks that are acoustic planks that run across the ceiling to help with break down the noise and so forth, because the floor is essentially concrete with some carpet, but just to help with the acoustics of the space, because it's a very large space. We call this the city room, and then immediately behind it is the one-stop shop. This is the reverse angle from the opposite side looking north. So you can see the plaza entry to the left side, and then in the distance you can see the communicating stair that takes you to the upper levels. So the trim pieces are coming together. It won't be long before we have all of the architectural lighting features. There's some really, really nice lighting elements that go around the perimeter of this ring. So throughout the day, not only do you get a lot of nice natural light, but in the evening times, it'll have a really nice edge-lit condition around the perimeter. Moving upstairs to the 2nd floor. This was one of the floors in the previous presentations where we didn't have a ton of carpet in place at the time, but now not only have the carpet, but we have most of the ceilings are in place. The storefront systems around the interior of the office doorways and so forth are being completed. So it's just a matter of time. We're just really trimming out the floors in general, and you'll see this as we move up the level to 3 and 4 and across here. For instance, on level 3, this is an example of, this is primarily where the HR department will be, but you can see how the trim is ongoing. We'll be ready to move furniture into this space here shortly, but we're really proud of the progress that's coming together. On the city manager's office suite side, this is an example of how those offices are coming together. They now have all their doorways, the hardware's coming shortly, but and furniture is getting ready to be placed, but it's coming along quite well. All the lighting's done, and it's ready for furniture. And then some of the cool spaces that we have, these all happen in those triangular areas of the building. This is the north side where the conference spaces will be. And what you're seeing in the foreground without furniture in this photograph is what we call our little breakout collaboration space. So to the right is going to be some pinup boards and a flat panel display. There'll be loose furniture in front of that. It's both waiting area. It's for the employees to work together in teams, work on projects together, and then immediately behind them is the large conference room. So this is semi-public as well. So it's really the zone where we exchange ideas, work on projects together, and develop those partnerships with our contractors and vendors that support what we do here at the city. Something else that you hadn't seen before, I don't believe in the previous presentation, is the elevator cores themselves. So keep in mind, this used to be only one elevator in this shaft before. Now there's 2, and the previous elevators that were there before is now a stairway. So this photograph has been taken where the restrooms used to be. So now it's part of the lobby sequence when you come up the elevator and the stairways together. What you're seeing in this photograph is the veneer, the wood paneling veneer that's been put on the elevator core that matches all of the doors and all of the hardwood that we have throughout the project. So it's really looking sharp. It's going to be a really nice feature, and it's going to really provide a nice warm quality to the palette of the building. Moving to the 4th floor, now for the first time you're seeing furniture in place. So we just completed the install of furniture about a week ago now. Typically we reserve furniture installs till after substantial completion, but given the nature of the scale of this project, we're doing it in parallel as we come closer to the end of closer to substantial completion. We do that so that we can build on the efficiencies of having the contractors and the installers together in case there's any issues that come up. We can rewire things on the spot. We can adjust things that we need to adjust in real time. And it's setting us up for the opportunity to shake out the bugs and things like that once we bring technology into the building and attach it to the walls and so forth. We're talking about flat panels, speakers, cameras, things like that. So we're excited about that. But this is the first time you're seeing the scale of the furniture in the space and the open quality and just the fact that we really want to embrace all this natural light and circulation throughout the building. And before we had that so closed off, it was a single and double-loaded corridor scenario which you couldn't really see to the outside in all cases. So exciting to see all the way from corridor to the perimeter how you're seeing everybody circulate and work in this environment. The picture on the left, this is also on the 4th floor, is just an example of how we're utilizing some of these little cubbies and things that are used for printing and assemblage of documents and so forth. And in this case, it's a great little corner for a communal intern desk, which is fabulous. And then you can see the picture on the right is an example of our project space where there's a variety of furniture choices so folks can work independently or in groups together on projects. So really excited. And again, this is all on the north side, which is great light. On the south side, in the same triangular type shape, we have our breakout space for the employees, which is the kitchen, in this case, a little huddle space. So the photograph to the left is the kitchenette area, and now you see the furniture in place. We still need to add appliances and things, and that'll happen after we complete substantial work. But essentially, this is all window glazing and right along Glendale Avenue. So when folks huddle there throughout the day or taking a lunch break, they'll be right on Glendale Avenue and seeing the great views to the south. And immediately on the right side is, adjacent to the kitchenette is this little seating area. In it too will have a little whiteboard pinup space and flat panel for collaboration and meetings and things. Moving over across the way to the council chambers, you've seen this picture developed over the last couple months now. There's still quite a bit of work to do, but most of the ceiling work is almost done. A lot of it has to do with new lighting. You can kind of see where all the patches are. So there's a lot of new light fixtures. The perimeter has been completely redone again with framed up drywall. We're working on the AV booth. The picture, or to the right side of the photograph, the dais is being rebuilt. So we're working on the millwork now. So we're getting all that put together in the shop. But it's coming along. The next big move here will be the theatrical lighting that will be above your dais. So that's going to help with TV broadcasts and so forth. So we're excited about that. Just a brief shot of Murphy Park. This is facing east near the CenturyLink building and along Glen Drive. This is primarily to show you that a lot of the grading work will continue, and in the meantime, around the perimeter and circulation paths, we've already put in a lot of the utility infrastructure. So this is the lighting that you see in the foreground, so you can see the bases that are starting to be set up in place. So it's just quite a bit of work to go. Like I said, this part of the project is not going to be complete until mid-May at the earliest, and we're on track for that, but there's just a lot more to go. So that's the highlights of how things are proceeding. As far as in progress, we covered most of the top bullets. What we didn't show was how the garage entry portal on 59th Avenue is coming along. But if you've been driven by recently or so, you'll start to see the same architectural elements that are on the stairs being placed now. So it won't be long before that's complete. We're going to work on the guardrail condition that goes around the entire perimeter of the garage. That's coming. That's in the shop right now. So you'll start to see some more articulation of the details around the garage. It'll be tied into the building, the vocabulary of the building. Murphy Park, again, I was telling you about the sidewalk or the light bases, but we are working on sidewalks. We're trying to figure out the layout and how they're going to sit. And then as we get into next month, our IT team, which has been fantastic to work with, these guys have been great. And what we've been working on very closely from the beginning is how we're integrating all the backbone for IT in the building. And they'll be installing a lot of the network equipment starting next month. I mentioned last time that some of it will be temporary, as we bridge the gap, but it won't be long before all the permanent stuff is coming into place. So that's a good thing. It just helps us with all our building commissioning as we proceed further. We're expecting the furniture delivery for the third floor first week in February, which is next Monday, actually. So it won't be long before we start that. And it takes about 2 weeks per floor to put furniture in, and then back to the hardscape on Murphy Park. So, you know, it's the next 3 months are going to just dramatically change exponentially each month. We really are dialing in the finishes now. We're really excited about the progress. I hope you all as well. I know that you see these updates, and I think you've seen as you drive around the building, but it's really taking shape, and I think it's exciting to see how, with where we've been in the last several months and where we are today, that, you know, we really got something special going on, so we're really proud of that. So with that, I don't have any additional information to share at the moment, but as far as scope, schedule, and budget goes, we're holding everything today, and we're staying on track. So with that, I'll open it for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Are there any questions from the council? Comment? Councilman Tomachov.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a question. This is either the second or third presentation where it shows no progress in the basement. Is it because it's too dark to take pictures down there, or what's the story why we don't see any of the progress happening in the basement?
Vice Mayor and Councilmember Tomachov, no, it's not because it's too dark or anything like that. It's just in the sequence of what we thought was complete to show for the update today. I will tell you that as far as the effort of the teams, they're still working from top down. So there's a bit of a balancing act with what they're doing on the garden level and the lower level to bring them up to speed in the construction process. Like, they have certain trades that are hitting it certain weeks. Like, for instance, right now the electricians are hitting it really hard. And then the grid will start to go in, and they're working on the lower level on the bathrooms and so forth. So it's just sequencing. You know, I can do a better job of taking more photos of all those areas for the next update. It just was the fact that we had more complete elements because of their phasing that they had on the upper floors that I wanted to show you today.
Councilmember Guzman.
Yes, the picture. Can you hear me? On page 5, the amphitheater, I was just curious, do you guys have an estimate of how many people will be able to be seated in that area?
Vice Mayor, council members, estimate, we believe in the hard seating area that you can see in this photo, or this rendering, I should say, approximately 300. Now, what I don't remember if the 300 also includes some activity in the foreground, which is the mosh between the stage and the seats themselves. And keep in mind, these are bench seating, so they're not permanent seats. So we think we can fit about 300 there, and then immediately behind, that includes between the walkway to the edge of the lawn seating. And in the lawn seating, we think we can accommodate anywhere between 4 to maybe 450 in that range, and just in terms of just area. Now, again, that's a real rough estimate. We haven't really sat down to say, let's plot each person in area, but just using the rough math, that's where we believe we are.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I only have 2 questions left after the others have been asked, and one's not even a question. I just want to share with you that I'm receiving a number of compliments on how nice the building is looking, and that it's an improvement over the previous architectural style, and it's fresh and light, and a compliment to our downtown, and quite attractive. So pass that on. Good to hear that from our residents. The question I have that I brought up last time, maybe you can fill us in. Have you made any progress on the idea for additional roof screening of the utility, the equipment up on the mechanicals up on the roof?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Turner, we have not physically made progress on it yet. We've looked at some additional studies to figure out what we can do. We were planning to mock up some samples of how we could close those gaps. We just haven't been able to do that yet. I don't have a timeline that I have today to share with you, but it's something we still are working on in the background.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad it's still top of mind for you. It doesn't affect our opening of the building or anything like that, but I also don't want it to just fall by the wayside, because I do think that we need to address that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor and Council Member, I will say that, yes, right now, we want, everything we're doing now from a scope standpoint is based on, for those completion dates. If we have some fine tuning that we need to do that's subsequent after that, then I think we all understand that that would extend some time. But again, that would not hold up the opening of the building.
Thank you much.
All right. Councilmember Baldenegro.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Garcia, for this presentation. I've had some merchants reach out to me. We had a merchant meeting this morning, and two of them after the meeting had asked me, so when do you get to move in? And I said, well, we can talk now. I have a temporary office at the media center. You can come visit me on that. And they said, no, it's too far. I want to walk across the street, come talk to you. I was okay. I go, let me find out. I'm guessing still April. I don't know. I hear we're on track. So if I had, because they want a date. Sure. So some are very specific of that. If I had to give them a date, I'm not going to hold you to it, but they will. What would you say?
Put you on the spot.
Vice Mayor, council members, Councilmember Baldenegro, I will say this, is that in the months, once we get to substantial completion and we are authorized to occupy the building, we would like to phase everybody in between that month of late April and the middle of June, if possible. That's our plan. And we're working on all kinds of celebratory plans and things like that to get to that point. But unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to know more than that because we're still in the planning process, but we're working together to get there. But I will say this, is that it's been a long journey together, and I think that it's going to be worth the wait.
Thank you. I've told them, we will move in when it's ready. And I've been things come up. We're on track. We're on pace. Everything's going well. We haven't had any major setbacks, which is great. So I've been telling them, but sometimes the little things might take a couple of days. All of a sudden, this thing is wrong, or IT's wrong, or phone, whatever it is. It takes sometimes they just want to make sure it's perfect when we move in. I go, so just a little more patience will be fine. But I'll let them know that you said. I'm just kidding. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anyone else have any comments? Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just to follow up on that, did I hear correctly that move-in is now in May? Or tell me, when is move-in?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Turner, our tentative plans right now is starting in late April to start phasing in some moves in. We're working on which departments and the order in which they happen, but we're trying to get that range between late April and early June for the occupants of this building.
Okay, thank you. That's the first I'm hearing of that. We've always been told it was on schedule, and I thought the schedule was the end of March.
Vice Mayor and council members, Councilmember Turner, the substantial completion is in April, middle of April, and we can't technically occupy the building prior to that. What we are doing is expediting things like furniture installs and things like that typically happen after we get substantial completion in most cases, so that we can expedite the move for our occupants in the building. So we are still staying on track with what we've been stating across all of these previous meetings.
You might, if I may, Vice Mayor, I mean, this has been kind of my question most of these updates, and this feels like news to me, and it doesn't feel like it's on the schedule that we'd been told. And I'm not overly upset about the fact that, it might take a little longer. It's been a big project, but if we are behind schedule, we should know so that we don't, you put us in a difficult position if we're misrepresenting it to the public. And so let's be sure we're not misrepresenting it to the council, but it also raises my concerns about if we're behind schedule and not aware of it, are we also off budget and not aware of it?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Turner, no, we've been giving monthly updates, and we're still on schedule with budget, scope, and schedule, obviously. But the terminology we've been using consistently in this forum is on April 14th is our substantial completion for the building. On May 15th is a substantial completion for Murphy Park. So we cannot technically occupy the building ahead of that. What we are doing is expediting the ability to do that as quickly as possible. So we've always been substantially complete in April. And what that means is that the building is essentially all its components operationally, life safety, et cetera, are operational. But that also means that there could be a few things, what we call some punch list items, things that we got to pick up to refine, et cetera. But the building is essentially ready to occupy. So we have not wavered from that from all these previous meetings. We've been pretty consistent with that information as far as moving in after April, but that the completion, the substantial completion was mid-April.
Well, apparently I'm missing something because that's, what you're saying is not what I've been hearing, but I guess I can go back and double check on that. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Tomczak.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm curious now, especially with the, now you're talking about possible people not moving in until June. Are you scheduling the move-in the same as you're scheduling the, basically the completion from the top down? Because I'd just like to point out that it's coming up on 3 years that we have not had, the council has not had an office. So I would hope that we're not the last people to be moving into the building. So, I mean, I'm completely out of room to store binders and things in my home. So I don't know, this is the first time I heard about the top-down scheduling. So is that how this, how is the move-in going to be scheduled?
Vice Mayor and council members, Councilmember Tommelchoff, it is a tentative plan. We're still working on the details of who goes first, et cetera, but that's our range, knowing the level, the number of floors we have, number of occupants per floor, and just the phasing and what works well. We're still working on that. That's going to be published, but the question earlier was when, and we wanted to give you a range of activities when that's happening. Obviously, more specific dates are forthcoming.
If I could, I certainly hope the council are not the last people to be able to move into the building, because as far as I know, we're the only ones that have not had office space this entire time. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question.
Councilmember Guzman.
On the amphitheater, so I understand you said that we have to wait for the building, but is the amphitheater, the council chambers, none of that is going to be, we won't be able to use any of that until we actually move into the building?
Vice Mayor, council members, the amphitheater and the council chambers are part of that substantial completion of the mid-April date. So again, we're seeing that as a complete package. What I have mentioned before in previous updates is that some of the site work, which most likely to the degree that we don't think it's going to affect the operation of the buildings, may lag behind, because part of that ties into the park, which is a month later. But as far as the physical features, the amphitheater, the chambers, and the tower itself, and I would include the parking garage as well, would be substantially complete in April, middle of April that we've been discussing. So that means that they would be ready to potentially occupy, or at least for us, it's returned over to the owner, who we are, to fill in the blanks, which is any additional equipment that we need, technology, et cetera, which most of it's going to be in place, but there's always a little bit of the fine tuning that has to happen before we actually have an official meeting or whatnot. But again, the contractor is working towards those dates to get the project ready for us to occupy.
Well, my concern is that, we were planning events for the 250th birthday of our country, and we wanted to combine it with us moving in there, and if we're waiting until May or June, it's going to be too hot. So we were going to be doing some of the things and using the amphitheater, so that's my concern.
All right, thank you. I would just like to recognize the staff and the construction folks of keeping this on budget. I know we've added things and we've increased the cost, but as far as the initial budget base, I think that's pretty impressive over 3 years to not have those the cost increase over and above what we had estimated. So thank you very much. And regarding the time frame, I had planned an event in May to utilize the amphitheater and the council chambers and a few other things. And based on the discussions that I've heard, I decided to postpone that because I really didn't feel like even mid or late May, it would be quite everything ready. I knew there was move-in. I knew there was going to be some time. So I'm not sure that I've been too confused about the timing, even though the June date is a little bit later than I'd like to see it. But you said the beginning of June, and I understand, I'd like to have seen us be in by May, and I think all of us would have been. And I would urge you to try to make that happen, because there are things that we would like to move forward quickly. But otherwise, I'm pleased with everything that's happened, budget-wise and with the construction. It's a major project. It's taken time. There's been some delays, but I think overall, we're about where we need to be. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bowers, would you please introduce item number 2?
5-year forecast of the major funds.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Council. We're here today for our 5-year forecast as the kickoff to our budget preparation for the next fiscal year 27. I have with me today, I have Amy Lindsay, who is our Assistant Budget and Finance Director, as well as Jonathan Hill, who is our Budget Administrator with the city. As part of our agenda today, we'll be reviewing the 26-27 budget overview. We'll discuss our property tax levy. In addition to that, we'll have the 5-year financial forecast of the general fund, all our special revenue funds, and our enterprise funds. So this next slide shows the dates of the budget workshops and the voting meetings that are a part of our fiscal year 26-27 budget development process. This meeting today is the first of 4 budget workshops where council will be presented information including the overview of the budget process, property taxes, and the 5-year financial forecast for the major funds of the city. The draft 10 years capital improvement plan will be presented and discussed with council on March 3rd, 2026. Our operating budget is scheduled for March 30th, which is a Monday. On April 14th, we'll present the entire proposed budget with the fiscal year 27 operating, capital, improvement plan, debt service, and contingency budgets. The last 3 meetings in the calendar are in bold. These are items in the budget calendar that have legally required deadlines. We schedule our budget calendar so the legally required deadlines are much earlier than what is required by law. This allows for flexibility in the calendar if needed. Tentative budget adoption is scheduled on May 12th. The maximum expenditure limitation is set upon adoption of the tentative budget, which means that after tentative budget adoption, the budget cannot be increased, although it could be decreased. The legal requirement for the tentative budget adoption is on or before the 3rd Monday in July of each fiscal year. Final budget adoption and discussion of the property tax levy is scheduled for June 9th. The legal requirement for final budget adoption is the 1st Monday in August, with at least 14 days between the adoption of the final budget and the adoption of the tax levy. And the adoption of the property tax levy is scheduled for June 23rd. The legal requirement for the final tax levy is to be adopted on the 3rd Monday in August. There are additional requirements for publications that are built into this schedule as well. This next slide is a slide that you have seen before, but basically it outlines the development of the city's budget process, which begins around October 1st of every year and officially ends when the budget is adopted by council the following June. We often tell people this process feels a little bit like painting of the Golden Gate Bridge. Once you've completed painting the bridge, you go back to the beginning and start over again. This graphic shows the general steps taken during the budget process, beginning with the development of the 5-year financial forecasts. Once staff completes the steps in yellow, that information is brought to council in the form of a council workshop. Those steps are in red in the graphic. Council provides staff input through those workshops, which is then incorporated into the budget moving forward. The 3 gray boxes in the graphic are the voting council meetings where the budget is legally adopted. This next slide represents the revenue and fund balance, which are in the yellow box on the left portion of the slide, that support the operating budget, the capital improvement plan, and the city's debt service payments with contingency. These 4 expenditure types are represented on the boxes on the right side of the slide. Revenues are the sources of funding that come into the city annually. So for the city of Glendale, sales tax and state shared revenue are our 2 primary sources of revenue. Other sources of revenue include development impact fees, user fees, which fund enterprise funds like water, sewer, solid waste, and the landfill, bond sales, and grants. We monitor all revenues closely, especially sales tax and state shared revenue, since they are our 2 primary sources of revenue. Expenditures represent the day-to-day costs such as police and fire operations, personnel costs, utilities, and neighborhood and recreation programs. Our capital improvement plan provides improvements to city streets, water and sewer lines, parks, and city facilities. These are non-routine in nature and generally cost more than $50,000 and have a useful life of at least 5 years. Our debt service provides principal and interest payments on the city's outstanding debt. Some of the types of debt that the city currently has include general obligation bonds, which are paid with the secondary property taxes. We have excise tax debt that is paid by the general fund, transportation debt, which is paid by the dedicated transportation sales taxes, water and sewer debt is paid by the water and sewer utility, and landfill geo bonds, which were issued in fiscal year 22, are paid by landfill user fees. In addition to that, we have certificates of participation, or we sometimes refer to them as COPs, that were issued in fiscal year 22 to pay down unfunded liabilities in the public safety personnel retirement system. That, again, is paid by the general fund. Additionally, we have contingency. This is used for unforeseen expenditures and emergencies. Contingency is an appropriated line item and not a reserve fund or savings. It is only spending authority. The general fund has a $5 million assumed contingency in the forecast, which you'll see in the next few slides. In order to use contingency, that requires council approval. So with that, the next few slides we'll be reviewing are our primary and secondary property tax levy. So one of the city council's financial policies is related to property tax, and it reads, to ensure the ongoing general fund stability, the primary property tax levy will be evaluated each year to determine where it should be set again. So again, we've shown these slides previously, but it's, I think, a good review for the general public as well. So this slide represents how the property tax bill is split for an average Glendale resident. As you can see from the first circle on the left, the majority of property tax goes to the school and represents about 58% of a total property tax bill. The next 2 circles are the percentage of property tax that Glendale receives. The yellow circle is Glendale's primary property tax, and that represents about 4% of the total bill. The primary property tax we receive is to cover general fund expenses. The third circle is Glendale's secondary property tax and represents about 15% of the average bill. This is our voter-approved property tax related to debt service on our general obligation bonds. The brown circle represents the county's portion at 15%, and the last circle represents any special districts that a property tax owner or a property owner may have within their district at 8%. So this next slide shows an example for a home within the city of Glendale that has an estimated market value of $435,000. We looked that market value was obtained through just a review of Zillow, but this is a real property here in Glendale. So the first 2 lines of the tax show assessed value, which is commonly referred to as the limited property value, and the second line is the full cash value. The assessed value is the value that the Maricopa County Assessor's Office uses to provide to the county treasurer where the property taxes are calculated. The last column on the right shows the differences from 24 to 25. The assessed value only increased by $6,900 or 5%. And that's the taxable value. The reason for this was due to Prop 117, which began in 2015, and it puts a maximum increase of 5% on the assessed value. So for tax purposes, a home cannot go up more than 5% because of Prop 117. So Glendale's primary and secondary rates are listed in red. The 2024 Glendale total rate was $1.49.25, and the total Glendale portion of the tax bill was $206.44. In 2025, the rate is 1.4538, which is our current combined rate. The total Glendale portion of the tax bill was $211.15. So on the primary property tax levy, this is an example of how we may be able to increase our levy by 2%. The 2% is a statutory limit that a city can raise the primary levy once they have reached their maximum primary levy amount. This example does not assume any new construction or any increase in assessed valuation for property values. So this example also uses the fiscal year 2025 adopted property tax rate or top property tax levy for both the primary and secondary property tax, and applies a 2% increase to the primary levy only. As you can see, the amount of general fund revenues that would be generated by a 2% increase would only equal $145,000. The last time City Council raised the property tax levy was in fiscal year 2016. This graph shows the cumulative effect of not increasing the primary property tax levy. The red indicates the actual primary property tax revenue received by year, and the yellow represents how much additional property tax we would have received if we had continued to raise the primary levy by the statutory limit of 2% each year. In fiscal year 2026, we received just over $7.2 million in primary property tax levy. If we had continued to apply the 2% increase each year, we would have received an additional $1.3 million. The total amount of property tax collected had the city applied the 2% every year, beginning in fiscal year 2017, would have been $6.9 million approximately. So this next graph represents our primary property tax revenue growth, which has been contributed to by new construction being added to the rolls. The darker blue represents the flat levy amount that has remained flat since 2016. The lighter blue, or the top part of the graph, represents the levy amount that is from new construction. So as you can see, since about 2020, 2021, new construction has been significant for the city. If we add those amounts for fiscal year 26, you'll get $7.276 million, which was received and was shown on the previous slide. So this slide represents the combined property tax rate for the city of Glendale from fiscal year 2016 through fiscal year 26. As you can see, the rate has significantly decreased since adopting the flat levy policy. The top left of the graph shows the combined Glendale rate at 2.1965 in fiscal year 2016, and the far right of the graph has our current combined rate at 1.4538, which represents a 67% decrease. The rate decrease is because the levy has remained the same, but the number of properties and the increased valuation has increased. So a larger property population divided by the flat levy lowers the rate over time. So this graph compares the city of Glendale's combined property tax rate with other valley cities. On the far left is Scottsdale at 90 cents, Glendale is in the middle at $1.45, and to the far right is Tempe at $2.46. So we're sitting right in the middle of most of the valley cities. This slide shows how much the average median home value in Glendale has increased from 2017 to 2026, which is the orange line, and compares that with the Glendale property tax payment on the average Glendale property, which is the green line. The numbers on the left side of the graph represent the orange line. In fiscal year 2017, the median Glendale home value was just about $200,000. At the end of the orange line shows the median home value has doubled to $400,000 in fiscal year 2026. The numbers on the far right of the graph represent the green line. As you can see, the Glendale property tax for the average Glendale property has remained relatively flat, despite the home values, growth in home values. This is a result of the council's flat levy policy. To summarize, the primary levy revenue is to cover general fund expenses. There is a statutory maximum increase of 2% per year, and the cumulative effect of the flat levy for 2026 is about there's a typo on this slide, $1.4 million. At this time, we would like to receive council consensus on one of three options. Option one would be to continue to have the primary levy remain flat for fiscal year 2027. As a reminder, this would be our 11th year in a row that council has not raised the primary property tax levy. Option two would be to increase the primary levy by 2%. And option three would be to leave the primary rate flat at 0.3242. So at this time, if council would like to discuss or provide consensus on those options, we're all ears.
Any comments or questions? Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor. You have on the slide, you show the cumulative effect, and I know we've been given the number before. I mean, obviously, the cumulative effect doesn't apply because we haven't been increasing the property tax. So, and not that I support it, but if we were to do the 2% increase, what amount of money would that generate to the city?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Tonshoff, if we were to do it to the current rate for the primary tax levy, that would be about $145,000.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Thank you. To me, anyway.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think the presentation so far shows that this council, based on the recommendations from staff, has been doing a very wise and prudent job of managing our money and keeping our taxes as low as possible in a time of increased population and increased demand for services from our residents. So I think we should just stay the course and do again this year what we've been doing for the last 11. Thank you.
Anyone else? I just had one question regarding the 2% increase per year. As you have seen, our property values have doubled. And if we had simply left the levy at the same rate 11 years ago, would that 2% apply to it, or is it only a 2% increase in the levy?
So, Vice Mayor, Council, so some terminology, I think, so that I understand the question. So the 2% applies to the levy, right? And in Arizona, what happens then is a rate is developed based on taxable property and a levy. And you can either select a levy amount, which is what we have chosen to do here, or you can select a rate amount and then calculate what the amount you would calculate. So from a property tax standpoint, we can statutorily apply a 2% increase to our levy each year over time, which we have not been doing for the last 11 years.
Okay. So if property tax or property values had, say, doubled and we did not do anything with our rate, would that be, could we have left it at that rate, or would we have had to have reduced that rate? in order to be within the law?
Vice Mayor, council members, we could have left the rate flat, and it would have delivered an increased amount of tax dollars over time.
That's what I was trying to understand. So not only have we eliminated increasing our levy, but we have also we've decreased the rate. So we have kind of a double reduction in taxes that aren't recorded here. What you're showing is if we'd increased by 2%, we'd have had this much more, which is about an 18% increase over current value. Whereas if we had simply left the rate alone and allowed the property tax to continue to increase, we would also had quite a large windfall, which we did not think was right as a council. Is that correct?
Vice Mayor, council, that is correct.
Okay. So again, I'm very, very proud of the council making these decisions as well. We've been very frugal with our tax levies, and I think we can proudly say that we have not increased taxes, and in fact, we have reduced taxes over the last 11 years. Thank you for your presentation. If there's no other comments, do we have a consensus to move forward on item 1? There's 3 options here. Let me go back to here. Flat primary levy, which is what we're currently doing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Or 2% primary or flat primary. It seems like we have consensus to do number 1.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Vice Mayor, I think it says council consensus flat secondary. You said primary.
This is
the
Mayor,
for
yeah.
flat primary.
Yeah, this is for the primary. We're going to do the secondary in
Okay.
a minute.
Okay.
Okay. So we do have consensus for a flat primary. Thank you.
Thank you. So this next graph represents our secondary property tax revenue growth that has been contributed by new construction being added to the rolls. The red represents the flat levy amount that has remained flat since fiscal year 2016, and the yellow amount represents the levy amount that is from new construction. Adding up the yellow and red amounts will get the total revenue received on the secondary property tax per year. For fiscal year 2026, we're expecting to receive just over $25 million in secondary property tax revenue. As a reminder, our secondary property tax revenue can only be used for debt service, and that is what supports our general obligation bond program. So to summarize, the secondary levy, as I said, is only for debt service payments on our GO bonds. The current flat levy does account for growth of new construction, and at this time, we'd like to receive council consensus on one of the 3 options below, and these are basically the same options as the primary tax levy discussion. So the first option would be to keep the secondary tax levy flat for 2027, and that would be the 11th year in a row that council has not raised the secondary property tax levy. Option 2 would be to increase the secondary flat levy by 2%, and option 3 would be to leave the secondary rate flat at $1.1296. And with that, turn the presentation over to council for discussion on those 3 options.
Any comments or questions? Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And if I understand this part correctly, the reason we've been able to maintain the flat levy that we currently have is in no small part to the adopted council policy that we will only sell new bonds as we retire existing bonds so that our total indebtedness doesn't increase above that $20 million line or something. Is that?
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Turner, that's correct.
And I also think that that's a wise policy our city adopted, and other cities should if they can, and I would support us continuing on that same path. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do we have a consensus to do item our council consensus on 1, which is continue a flat secondary tax levy as we currently do it?
Yes.
Like we have consensus to move forward with the flat secondary tax levy. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Mr. Hill for the 5-year financial forecast.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'll be going over their 5-year financial forecast and specifically their revenue portion. As Mr. Gibson previously mentioned, the development of the 5-year financial forecast is the first step in the budget process. The forecasts are a high-level overview and do not represent the budget for fiscal year 27, but it's one of the tools used to develop a balanced budget that can later be presented to City Council. Long-term financial planning considers economic conditions and future spending as a best practice that provides insight into the city's future financial capacity, its ability to provide core services, and to achieve financial sustainability. It's a model that can be used to foresee and present future financial challenges and is used when we communicate with our rating agencies. 5-year financial forecasts are recognized as a best practice by the Government Finance Officers Association. And then some of the drivers we use to build our 5-year forecast is data collected from several sources around the state of Arizona, including the Department of Revenue, the League of Cities and Towns, Joint Legislative Budget Committee, Department of Transportation. We use our own Glendale historical data, and we also compare ourselves to other cities. The 5-year forecast provides the ability to see how decisions made in the current year affect the city in the future. During this presentation, we will highlight the financial trends in the general fund, special revenue funds such as public safety, highway user revenue funds or HERF, and transportation sales tax. And we'll also review the enterprise funds for water services, solid waste, and landfill. So this pie chart shows the largest contributors to the general fund. As you can see, city sales tax makes up the majority of the pie chart at 52% for our general fund revenue. State shared income tax and state shared sales tax account for another 25%. And those three sources, which happen to be all taxes, account for 77% of our general fund revenue. Then we have our intergovernmental payments at 10%, followed by license and permits at 7%. Then we go on to our general fund, other revenue sources at 4%, and then the primary property tax is 2%.
Vice Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question
Councilman
here.
Tomachoff.
Thank you. So the forecast on slide 23, we're showing basically 25% from state resources between the sales tax and the shared revenue, shared income tax. Is that including the forecasted decrease due to the bill are we forecasting the decrease, and is that what this number is?
Yeah, Vice Mayor and Councilmember Tomachoff, we have that forecasted in the out years, and I'll go over that in a little bit, but this particular forecast is just our current adopted budget of fiscal year 26.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll spend a little bit of time focusing on sales tax, since as you saw from the previous slide, that's the largest portion of our revenue source for general fund. This chart shows our annual city sales tax collected across all funds from fiscal year 2019 through fiscal year 25. You can see city sales tax has grown from 172 million in 2019 to 289 million in fiscal year 25. And then the information on the right shows how much our sales tax has grown year over year. In 2020, sales tax increased by 5.8%, and that was typically what we received as an annual increase prior to fiscal year 21. And then in 21, 22, and 23, we had significant tax growth at 11.3, 22.4, and 13.6%. And then in 24, city sales tax went up by 1.4%. And then in fiscal year 25, we had similar growth at 1.3%.
Could you give us an explanation of the large increases in the tax rate or the tax percentage increases in the 21, 22, and 23 years?
So Vice Mayor and council members, a lot of it was due to COVID and then inflation. I think during COVID, a lot of people continue to see we were very unsure of the certainty of the future or the spending, and people found out about Amazon and how quick they could deliver. And so a lot of that sales increased, and then we had heavy inflation in the following years.
Was that impacted is this including our construction sales tax as well? And would that have impacted it? Because I know we had a lot of construction during those years.
Vice Mayor, City Council, yes, that also includes our construction sales tax. So I think the next slide may show you in what categories growth was derived from, and that will give you a little bit better understanding of our sales tax.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you. So on the annual TPT increases, though, I mean, there's notable slowing in 2024 and 2025. Do we attribute that to the falling off of construction sales tax? To what do we know what that's attributed to? I mean, it seems I know 2019 and 2020 were pre-COVID, so we were annual increases in the 5% range of our TPT, and I get the big jumps, and I know what those were when we were, a lot of stuff on the 303, a lot of construction sales tax, which I know has started to level off, but these numbers are a little bit startling for 2024 and 2025.
Vice Mayor, Councilmember Tolmachev, I think this slide will better show, because it's actually by category of how those taxes have come in over the last 5 fiscal years. As you can see, there's a number of categories that in fiscal year 25 have decreased over prior years. Particularly construction sales tax in fiscal year 21 was 17 million. For 24 it was 39, and for 25 it was 36 million. So as the city gets closer to build out and projects slow down, we anticipate that construction sales tax will continue to decrease. In some ways, we treat construction sales tax as one-time monies because it is only collected on new construction once it's built. And so we believe that trend will continue to slow down. Some other categories, retail sales was heavily affected by inflation as prices increased on the cost of goods. Our tax rate stayed the same, but it was charged on a bigger, number. And so that has varied a little bit between years. We do anticipate that there will be some reduction in the retail sales this current year, primarily because of the economy. The economy has slowed. Things are just not moving as fast as they once did. But those are kind of how we see these numbers over the last 5 fiscal years.
Vice Mayor, if I could continue, I have another question. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So when I was going through this, doing my homework, though, you can see the difference in construction sales tax is substantial. It's still increasing, though. From fiscal year 2024, it was increasing, but it still shows a substantial slowdown from fiscal year 2023 to 2024 on slide 24. But it shows on the slide from 31,600,000 and whatever to 39.5 million. There is I see the decrease from 39 million down to 36 or almost 37 million from fiscal year 24 to 25. But the percentage increases, it doesn't make sense to me.
Mayor, or Vice Mayor, members of the council. So on the previous chart that you're looking at, that's the total. You want to focus on the totals at the bottom. So if you look at the totals at the bottom, there's a big jump between 21 to 22, then 22 to 23, slows down into 24, and it continues, but at a slower rate. So part of this is just the effect of looking at the overall total, and then part of it is it's a smaller percentage of a bigger number. So, right, there's some of that going on, is that it's gotten to be a bigger number from 200,000 up to 285. Then within here, you want to look at the individual categories, and yes, you can see some trade-offs. So for example, from 23 to 24, you still see construction jumping up, but you can see hotel motel starts to go down. You lose a little bit in other. So, you know, you lose a little bit in retail. So these taken together are what you're seeing on the other slide is the totals from the bottom. Some stay up, some go down. So in 24, construction contracting helped us offset some losses in some of the other categories. So overall, we were still up. Here in 25, you see it start to kind of go down a little bit on construction. You see it stay steady on amusements, go down in other, et cetera. So you have to kind of look at them each individually to understand what it is that is making the overall number go up and stay up, even though some of them are going down. We would consider, honestly, from 24 to 25, these to be almost flat. So with the exception of a little bit of a loss, you know, in construction contracting, almost everything else is just staying the same. It's not enough difference to go say, oh, well, it was caused by a certain thing within there, where we know in some of these large increases, say from 21, 22, and 23, that's a big impact of growth in construction and inflation at the same time. But the differences between 24 and 25 are becoming a little bit more nuanced, if you will, because those differences are not a huge that we can just say, oh, well, it was a particular thing. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand. We're looking at the total at the bottom. We do look at the individual categories, particularly construction, because we know it's not sustainable at $40 million a year. That's not going to continue to happen. So we watch as it starts to go down, which is what we anticipate. Then there are also variations, you know, month to month we look at different variations because of the activities that we have going on. In amusement, we also had a major filer who changed their method of filing, so we're monitoring that. There's just a lot of different things that go into each one of these. So again, we look at the bottom line, we look at these individually, but some of them, most of them are what we would call relatively unchanged. They're just sort of flat from year to year.
Okay.
Hopefully that kind of helps.
That's helpful, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. On slide 24, on the right-hand side where we're talking about the TPT increase by percentage, those numbers are year over year. They're not off of a baseline, right? So to actually be able to sustain percentage increases like 11 and 22% would be totally not expected. And if it's due to inflation, it would actually be a tragedy if that was happening as opposed to a blessing. The question or observations too that I have is that our hotel motel revenue has significantly increased from 21, and I trust that no doubt that's because we have a lot more rooms to rent now than we did back in 21. And of course that would fluctuate based on major events and concerts and other things like that we might be doing. And then lastly, I have a question down on retail sales, where we've gone from 104 million up to 125, 127. But we took a big jump in between 21 and 22, and I know COVID has been mentioned, but isn't that also about the time that we started getting our fair share of internet sales, taxes on internet sales? So I think we're doing a better job of capturing the revenue that our residents are entitled to from that. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments regarding that? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. On this slide, you can see how our sales tax is occurring halfway through fiscal year 26. The last column on the right is our current year-to-date sales tax collected from July through December, and it's comparing, the percentage is comparing it through what we collected from last July through December. You can see the total for this year, we're trending at 1.6% lower than the same time last year. And then it is also broken down by the separate categories.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, of here, on this chart in particular for this year, the big thing is rentals, right? So we know that we lost residential rental, and that's where you're seeing that loss in that 24% decrease in rental. Some of the loss was offset by gains in commercial rental because of those, that growth, but not all of it was offset by other gains. And so that's where you start to see, the loss of residential rental, which started to occur this year.
Vice Mayor?
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Question, please. On the rentals, as you explained, so what remains is the commercial rental, not the residential rental. Do you have a dollar amount that 24% represents that we've lost in rental income? Specifically residential, if you know it, but.
Mayor, members of the council, for an entire year, we estimate the loss of residential rental to be about 13 million.
13 million. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, that's across all of the funds. It's a little less than that in the general fund.
Gotcha.
Councilmember Conchas? Oh, I'm sorry, Baldenegro.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just curious, what do they categorize as amusement? Like, what are they? Just curious on that.
Mayor, members of the council, it's mostly what you would think it is, which is ticket sales. So things like ticket sales at the arena and ticket sales at the stadium and other, movie tickets and that type of thing. It's also fitness centers and places like that. They're a much smaller percentage of it. But it is, movie theaters and other kinds of theaters, and the major taxpayers in there are our arena and the stadium.
Vice Mayor?
Okay, Councilmember Guzman.
Can you explain the 12% loss in utilities? Where that comes from?
Vice Mayor and council members. So as Vicky mentioned, this is a month-to-month. We monitor this monthly month, and this is mid-year. Over the whole year, it's a better picture, but this is particular because of a large increase we received in the prior year due to an audit that the state conducted. And so it looks like it's negative 12 just because of a large one-time payment we received in fiscal year 25.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, go ahead.
Next, we'll move on to a slide comparing Glendale with other Valley cities and how they grew, their TPT grew from fiscal year 24 to 25. The cities listed here are the top 8, I believe, in population, excluding Tucson in Arizona. And so from the very top, you can see Tempe has a negative 3.1%. We're a little bit on the higher end of 1.3, doing a lot better than those other cities you see on there. And then Peoria is at 5.5. A lot of that increase was due to construction. You take construction out of Peoria, they're at 1.3%, just like us. And then Gilbert, 12.4, seems pretty high. The reason, January 25, they increased their TPT rate from 1.5 to 2%. And then they also started taxing what we call use tax purchases. And that's something that every other city, as you see on this chart, already taxes. And then Phoenix, I believe, raised their rates July 1st of 2025, which is not captured in that growth.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Turner.
That last city on the chart, Gilbert, is that somewhere here locally in the valley? I don't think I'm familiar with it.
We call that the other G city.
I thought that was Goodyear.
Assumptions in the city sales tax category of the general fund include the elimination of residential rental tax that we mentioned earlier. And I have this number down of total collected for residential rental in fiscal year 24 was 13.7 million. 7.5 million of that's for a general fund. The 5-year forecast assumes conservative growth for fiscal year 27 through 31. And then we include the reductions of construction sales tax. and then reach an average trend of construction in fiscal year 31. And then across all the other categories for TPT, we have a 1 to 2% increase. As we anticipate construction sales tax to slow down, we also anticipate the corresponding permitting and license fees related to those activities to decrease at the same pace. State shared sales tax forecast is consistent with the Arizona Department of Revenue and the League of Arizona Cities and Towns. State shared income tax is based on tax collected 2 years ago. The state adoption of the 2.5% flat income tax rate resulted in a reduction of state shared income taxes, which are reflected in our forecast. Our forecast has been updated to include the estimated reduction in state shared revenue due to the recent addition of Santan Valley and the new federal income tax deductions. And then we'll continue to monitor state legislation for any city finance impacts.
Vice Mayor?
Yes.
So that's
Councilmember.
why I asked the question earlier, because I don't see a percentage or anything here. So what are we forecasting? I think it was 11% for state sales tax and 14% for state income tax. I think, is that what you had for fiscal year 2025? So we're going to have to forecast it. So what are we forecasting?
Mayor, members of the council, the chart that you're referring to just showed for fiscal year 25, the current year, what percentage of the money coming in is from those categories. This is telling, going into the future, and you'll see it in the forecast here in a moment, this is telling you that we've taken all those things into account as we look to the future. But it didn't impact fiscal year 2025. That's
Right.
already passed.
I understand that, but what I didn't see anywhere in the presentation was another pie chart with different numbers in it for state shared revenue.
Mayor, members of the council, we don't have that. We can certainly give you a pie chart of what those different revenues
I'm
look
just
like
curi-
going forward, but they're in the forecast. You'll see them in a moment.
And it'll show the percentage?
It
Or it'll
won't-
just show a number?
Mayor, members of the council, it's not going to show a percentage of decrease of any particular revenue source. It's just going to show you how we've incorporated all of these things into the forecast. But if there's a different piece of information you need, you can let us know. We can provide that.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand, if I could, Vice Mayor.
Go ahead.
You were showing us that we were getting 25% of our overall revenue from the state. You showed us a percentage of a 25% overall revenue we're getting from the state. So what are we forecasting as a percentage of overall revenue from the state for the next fiscal year? Because a dollar amount, I mean, I guess I could figure out how to do the math myself, but we're obviously forecasting a lower percentage than 25% total from the state. So I'm just curious what that number is. If you don't have it today, I mean, but I'm just curious what that number is, because it's almost, well, as a fourth of our revenue was coming from the state. We're expecting less, but the dollar amounts, I don't know, I guess I could do the math and figure it out myself, but I'm just curious. That's why I asked the question earlier. I didn't see it in here anywhere where you're saying this is what we're getting now, this is what we're forecasting.
Vice Mayor, council members, so I understand your question. As Vicky mentioned, we forecast at like state shared sales tax is one thing, state shared income tax. I don't have the percentage. I didn't do that calculation, but I have the dollar amount that so far that we've estimated of loss for those items.
I guess maybe just at a future budget presentation, if you could give us the percentage, so I'm just basing it on the information you gave us at the beginning of the presentation was included a percentage, so we can understand percentage of decrease. I would like to know the percentage of the amount that we're forecasting, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, we normally do that at the budget wrap-up, but we can do it sooner and provide it for you.
All right, thank you.
And then based on all that information, this slide shows our general fund forecasted revenue for fiscal years 26 through fiscal year 2031. The red bars on the left are the actual general fund revenue we have received. And then on the right, the yellow bars are what we forecasted in general fund revenue. So in fiscal years 26 through 29, you'll see a little slight dip in revenue, and this is due to our forecasted decrease in construction sales tax, and then the two items which we discussed of the state shared revenue loss due to Santan Valley and the income tax. And next, I'll turn over to Ms. Lindsay to go over the general fund expenditures.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Vice Mayor, members of council. I'll be going through the general fund expenditure assumptions as well as expenditure assumptions in the other forecast that we'll discuss today. For the general fund operating expenditure assumptions, we have an average increase of 5% across all expenditure categories for fiscal years 27 through 31. This includes a $7.2 million increase in the personnel category, which includes temp pay, overtime, benefits, retirement, and regular salaries for fiscal year 27. We have included increases to public safety per the memorandums of understanding, the replacement of fire department apparatus, and the replacement of radios for the police department. The forecast also includes maintenance and operation of city facilities and funding for park maintenance and recreation programs. The cities issued certificates of participation in fiscal year 22 to pay down unfunded liability in the public safety personnel retirement system. The debt service payment averages $21.4 million for fiscal years 27 through 31. We also have $20 million in committed fund balance for the pension reserve fund in fiscal year 27. The vehicle replacement fund increased to $3.5 million in fiscal year 27 with an assumed 8% increase per year throughout the forecast. Contingency is budgeted at $5 million for fiscal year 26, the current fiscal year, and fiscal year 27. The amount budgeted for contingency is evaluated annually, and as a reminder, the use of contingency requires council approval.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember
Thank
Concha.
you. So our contingencies has been, I don't remember if we even had any contingency when I first came on the council. Or I don't think it was $5 million, I just don't think we had it. But it's been $5 million for 10 years at least, and the cost of everything has gone up. And I don't know if that's based on a percentage of our budget or if that's just the dollar amount we've always been comfortable with or accustomed to. But what is that based on anything, or we just always had a $5 million contingency?
Yeah.
Mayor, members of the council, right now it's just a number. What we look at is, have we ever had to use the entire $5 million in contingency? So at the point in time in which we started to see, gosh, we're getting close to using that $5 million contingency, we might reduce it. And again, it's your decision, but that's kind of what we would look like. We haven't had to use the full $5 million. If you want to go back and revisit history, the reason why the contingency was $5 million every year is this council decided we wanted to try to not use it at all and put $5 million back into fund balance every year so that we could grow our fund balance to the required number. So that's really where it came from. It was, we're going to put $5 million a year away until such time as we have our fund balance built back up. And then we've just left it there for now because we don't use all of it. We've been using more of it because things come up, but we haven't increased it or decreased it. We just left it there.
Vice Mayor, if I could.
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, we've been fortunate that we haven't had any kind of emergency where we've had to actually use the money. And I'm not I'm just wondering whether it's enough, because I know we've got excess fund balance. But I mean, statutorily, if I understand how it works, that if we did have an emergency, this is our emergency pot of money. And I don't know how big of an emergency you could handle for $5 million. So I just don't know whether we should at least have the discussion as we go through the budget process, whether we want to stick with that number. I'm not saying we need to decide that right now, but I just think that should be part of the discussion. Because in the event we did have some kind of catastrophic something happen, I don't know if that's enough.
Mayor, members of the council, it's a good discussion. I would remind council that we have contingency though in every fund. So this is just contingency in the general fund. We have another contingency in the water fund. We have one in the solid waste fund. We have one in transportation. So depending on where that emergency occurred, we could pull the contingency from any of the funds, or they could use it. So if it was a water emergency, water would have contingency, transportation has it as well. So all together in all of the categories, we probably have well over $20 million in contingency for those kinds of disasters.
And so, if I could, Vice Mayor, So in an emergency, those funds could be transferred into other departments? Let's just say we had a catastrophic building failure at a police station or something like that, where we had I don't know, I mean, I'm just saying if we had something like that happen, then other departments, I mean, the water contingency could help with that part of it, and this would be basically, this is I know a catch-all amount of money. But you would just divvy it up amongst or would field ops have to be able to handle all of that? I'm just not sure. We've never had to deal with it. So I like to be prepared.
Yeah, mayors, members, vice mayor, members of the council, contingency is just a budget item. It's not referring to the cash. So we would pull the contingency. Let's say general fund had the emergency. We could pull the contingency from anywhere. We actually can even pull it from capital projects where we adjusted their carryover. We put that contingency aside in the event we would need it. That doesn't mean all of the cash would come from water or from anywhere. It's just, this is where we would get the budget appropriation for that spending, but the cash would probably have to be talked about. Where is it going to come from? Is it all going to come from general fund? Whose emergency was it? That would have to be discussed at the time of whatever that emergency was.
So anything that's not an enterprise fund could be, I mean, enterprise funds, we wouldn't want to, because that's covered by the rate. So I think that'd be like, unless that's where the emergency was, we wouldn't want to access, water unless the water it was emergency with some sort of water infrastructure. But anything else that's general fund, it's kind of like, even though it's categorized by different departments, it's still just a pool of money that could be used then.
Mayor, vice mayor, members of the council, this is budgets are kind of complicated, so I'm going to try to say this maybe a little bit. When we talk about money, in my brain, money means cash money in the bank. Contingency is just a budgetary term. It's where is the appropriation, where is the authority to spend it? Right. And because we are a government entity, we cannot spend more than our budget, so we have this contingency sitting there. We could have, and when I first got here, we did have, we'll just say we could have $10 million in the general fund in the savings account that's sitting over here in savings, and they would budget the entire 10 million as a contingency in case they wanted to spend that 10 million. We've stopped doing it that way. We're much more conservative, but if we needed that budget authority, we could pull it from anywhere. We could pull it from savings in any department, but we have contingency, which is just the budgetary item sitting in different departments in different places. We'd come to you and we'd say, we need this much contingency from here, this much from here, this from here. And then we'd put it all together somewhere. The cash money would have to come from different places. It could come from the general fund. As you said, if it was a water emergency, we could pull all the contingency from everyone, give it to water, and they could spend their cash. So it's different in money is different than contingency.
Right, I understand that, but I also know we can't exceed what we budgeted for. So that was, but I didn't know that there was basically kind of blurred lines in between where the money could come from. That's the part I did not understand. So that's why in my mind, we budget for $5 million in contingency, and I didn't realize that if there was a true emergency, that the lines are blurred, that it's not just the $5 million we'd have access to. We could even pause capital projects, and we could figure out how to pay for the emergency.
Mayor, vice mayor, members of the council, that's exactly right. You have to do that. That's the right reason why we continue to say any use of contingency has to be approved by the council, but you would make a decision, and that's a good example. You could say, we're not going to build something, we're going to use its funding as contingency to fund this emergency. We would come to you with a recommendation of some kind, and then you would make the decision what had to stop, what savings you're going to pull from where, and then where the cash is coming from also in the event of that kind of emergency.
Okay. I'm glad we had the conversation, though, because I didn't realize that, and I just was thinking that $5 million, I mean, I know it sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not a lot of money. And if we had a real emergency with some sort of infrastructure in the city, that wouldn't go very far. So that's why I asked. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that discussion. Councilmember
Yeah.
Turner.
So Vicky, it's basically an allotment. Each one of those contingencies is an allotment, what they're giving. The 5 million, the waters is allotted $5 million of contingency, the police or whatever, you know. So it's like one big, it really is, like you said, it's a cash, but they're allotted that amount of money.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Guzman, that's correct. It's like a holding allotment is a good word for it. It's a budget just sitting there in case they need it. But when and if they need it, you have to make the decision. They have enough or they don't. If they don't have enough, you can pull it from somewhere else. And then who's coming up with the actual money for it is a different case. And if it's a very big emergency, we'd have to figure out a lot of things about where the money was coming from, and including the potential to bond fund it. You know, the money is a little bit different, but you're talking about, yes, an allotment that's just sitting there in case something happens.
Right. With an allotment, the actual cash isn't there. Yeah, so it's like a number that's what they're allotted. Okay.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm not clear if Councilmember Tomachoff still wants to have a conversation in the future about whether the 5 million is enough of a contingency in our general fund, or are you okay with where we're at on that?
I think if everybody wants to have the discussion, I'm fine with it. I mean, I have a better understanding of how it works. I still think, I mean, we've got, I'm going a little bit ahead, but we've got a lot of unassigned fund balance too. I mean, you could just park some money in contingency, and if we don't need it, we don't spend it. It doesn't change anything except make the money available in the event there was an emergency. We have, I don't know, it's 280 million or something like that, and I see going forward it goes down. So that's why I'm getting these looks from you guys.
So
like, what is she talking about?
Before I get sidetracked, before by chance that the floor gets sidetracked away from me, I was just going to say if the council member would like to have a discussion in the future about whether or not that's enough contingency, I would be in support of it for the sake of the discussion and so that we could learn more and make sure that we have a sound decision there. We had opted for the 5 million with the, as you mentioned, with the understanding that anything we don't spend in that returns back to our fund balance, and as a way in which we could grow our fund balance. Other projects in the community that we could budget for if our contingency wasn't as high as it is. Following? Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, go ahead.
I had one more question. Vice Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Guzman.
So if we have 5 million in one contingency and it's water and they need, like Councilmember Tomachoff said, they need more than that, we're able to pull it from somewhere else.
Mayor, members of the council, yes, we have
Okay.
it in multiple places.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and continue.
Just to kind of piggyback off of what Ms. Rios was saying, I'd have to go back and look at the exact amount, but
Okay, but you just said we had how much? Okay, but you just said we had how much, 100?
Vice Mayor, members of the council, I feel like it's ballpark, it's in the 130 millions, but I'd have to go back and get the exact dollar amount.
And if
for
we
you.
can draw from that at any time, I don't see why we need to even increase them.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, that's correct.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Go ahead and continue.
So that brings us to the slide for the general fund forecast for fiscal years 27 through 31. The beginning fund balance for each year is the top row, followed by that fiscal year's operating revenue, ongoing operating expenditures, one-time operating expenditures, net transfers, and contingency. The yellow line shows the surplus or deficit per year, meaning if fund balance is either being added to or drawn down. Ending fund balance is below the yellow line, and the assigned fund balances are listed below the ending fund balance line. Some of those items have been removed in fiscal year 27 and forward because the items will be added to the ongoing budget and no longer need to be assigned. The unassigned fund balance is the last yellow row towards the bottom of the chart. The city's fund balance policy in the general fund is that the unassigned fund balance is 25% of ongoing expenditures. In fiscal year 31, if we do not spend the $10 million budgeted in contingency for fiscal years 25 added to, or 26 added to 27, the unassigned fund balance would be right around 94 million.
Questions?
With that, we'll move into the special revenue funds. We have three major special revenue funds. The highway user revenue funds have the same revenue assumptions as the general fund. Here's the 5-year forecast for the highway user revenue fund. As I previously mentioned, a 2% annual increase to revenue has been assumed throughout the forecast. The capital outlay category in the HERF fund includes $19.3 million in pavement management for fiscal years 27 through 31. That project will be updated as part of the fiscal year 27 through 36 capital improvement plan, and council will see updates to the CIP in the budget workshop on March 3rd. Contingency in the HERF fund has been budgeted at $1.5 million for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. This fund typically does not use its contingency, and as you can see, they are above their fund balance throughout the forecast.
Vice Mayor?
Councilmember Tomachoff.
The capital outlay, is that pavement management, or what is that? On slide 35 presentation, but I thought we were at about $7 million a year for pavement, to stay on top of pavement management, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we can wait till their budget presentation to ask those questions, but I'm curious about the decrease. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Tomachoff, the pavement management program is partially funded with HERF funds. It's also funded with transportation sales tax. And then street reconstructions, like large arterial reconstructions, are funded through general obligation bonds. So this is just specifically what's budgeted in the HERF fund for HERF fund.
Any other questions?
Budgeted in the HERF fund for HERF fund.
Any other questions? I have just one question. The ending balance seems to be staying pretty steady. Just one question. The ending balance seems to be staying pretty steady, significantly higher than our policy. Why is it we're keeping?
In the capital outlay and also in their operating expenses, what they anticipate, being able to spend in each year, and you still see that large balance at the end.
Then let me rephrase my analysis then. So therefore, we keep a larger balance because we cannot contract to get enough work done to spend that balance. Is that more accurate?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, I have a question.
Councilmember Guzman.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Vice Mayor, when you said that the ending fund balance is higher than what you normally, what should it be? When you say higher,
Well, you asked me the
what is it
question, if
normally?
you look at the fund balance policy underneath there, it tells you what the policy is.
Okay.
And we're at
Oh,
3 million policy, 25 million actual.
okay.
Significant difference. But now, from what I just asked, the reason for that is we can't spend that money. In other words, there's not enough contractors out there that can get the work done and to coordinate it within the city function to keep the city functioning. Is that accurate?
Mayor, members of the council, it's probably a little bit more.
Bring that fund balance down, and then that would free up transportation sales tax money for transportation projects that HERF doesn't cover.
Mayor, members of the council, I think Jamshid is going to come try to shed some light on that question.
Both excellent questions. You're looking at a 5-year projection in this case. Most of what, at least in the half-cent transportation tax program, the requirement is to have a fiscally constrained model. Used to be for 25 years, now it's limited to about 10 years. But you're seeing the 5-year snapshot over here. So had you added 5 additional years to this, taking it out to 2035, you would see the fund balance, the ending fund balance dwindle down. It's necessary to have the fund balance in the positive for all the 10 years as part of the half-cent transportation program. So what you're looking at is the first 5 years, which sounds like it's more than healthy. In the next 5 years, you will see it come down based on projects that are already in queue or programmed in the CIP.
Vice Mayor, Mr. Maida, does that transportation sales tax expire, or is it continuous?
It's continuous.
Continuous?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Okay, Councilmember Tomachoff.
You know what? I'll wait till you get to that slide. Never mind.
All right, go ahead.
The Transportation Sales Tax Fund has the same sales tax revenue assumptions as the general fund. The capital outlay category in the Transportation Sales Tax Fund includes $88 million, in an $88 million investment in the pavement management program in fiscal years 27 through 31. And again, this project will be updated as part of the fiscal year 27 through 36 CIP. Contingency in the Transportation Sales Tax Fund has been budgeted at $300,000 for fiscal year 27, and this fund typically does not spend its contingency. And as you can see, the fund is above its fund balance policy throughout the forecast.
Questions? Councilmember Tomachoff.
Yes, I do have a question. So the operating, what's included in operating expenditures? Does that include our transit programs and other operating expenditures?
Vice Mayor, members of the council, that's correct.
Okay. And so based on what we're budgeting for our transit programs and debt service and capital projects, we're still forecasting about almost $56 million I'm trying to make sure. Even with the deficit, we're still going to have way more than we need for our fund balance.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, that's correct. And again, as Mr. Mehta just mentioned, the transportation sales tax program is actually they have a 10-year balanced forecast. What we do as part of the fiscal year or the 5-year forecast presentation, again, we show you the 5 years of the transport, but they have a 10-year program that fund balance gets drawn down significantly.
Okay, but I mean, there's room in there to maybe change some of our, depending on whether there's a council consensus, and I'm referring to ride choice, into looking into more microtransit options. And honestly, in the long run, those are less expensive because you're not driving around empty buses. But there's room in here to make a shift if that's what the council decides to do, is what I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Just one comment based on what was stated here is perhaps it would be beneficial for us to see that 10-year plan, and then that question would be answered. And I believe that's probably accurate. I think I've seen some 10-year plans where that exactly is what happened. We had a large fund balance. By the end of the 10 years, it was pretty much gone. So I think it'd be beneficial for us to see that if it's not too difficult to pull together.
Vice Mayor, members of the council, we can provide that information to you. The Public Safety Sales Tax Fund for Police includes the same revenue assumptions as the general fund. There are no expenditures in this fund. The funds are transferred to the general fund to cover expenditures in the police department. As you can see, there's a planned drawdown of fund balance annually in the total surplus deficit line in the forecast, and this fund is above its fund balance policy throughout the 5 years in the forecast. The Public Safety Sales Tax for Fire also includes the same revenue assumptions as the general fund, and there are also no expenditures in this fund. The funds are also transferred to the general fund to cover expenditures in the fire department. And as you can see in the surplus deficit line, there is a planned drawdown of fund balance for fiscal years 26 and 27. And throughout the forecast, this fund is above its fund balance policy.
Thank you.
So to summarize the special revenue funds, we will continue to watch revenues in the economy closely as these funds are reliant on state shared revenues and sales tax. And we will manage capital outlay programs to stay within adopted fund balance policies. That brings us to the enterprise funds. The enterprise funds include solid waste, landfill, and the water and sewer funds. These funds are supported primarily by user fees or charges and operate much like a not-for-profit business. The revenue assumptions in the following forecasts assume council-approved rate increases only, as well as some nominal growth in revenue. and enterprise funds typically are more capital-intensive operations. The solid waste fund includes council-approved rate increases in the revenue assumptions. It includes capital outlay expenses that are typically the replacement of equipment. This fund has a contingency amount of $200,000 for fiscal years 26 and 27, which is typically unspent at the end of the fiscal year. And the solid waste fund meets its fund balance policy throughout the forecast. The landfill fund includes council-adopted fee structure. This fund has a contingency amount of $500,000 for fiscal years 26 and fiscal years 27, which is typically unspent at the end of the fiscal year. And the landfill fund also meets its fund balance policy through fiscal year 2031. The other revenue in this fund is the maintenance of effort transfer in from the general fund. The water and sewer funds also include council-adopted rate increases. This fund also assumes the issuance of debt throughout the forecast to assist with the execution of its intense capital outlay. As you can see in the forecast, the water and sewer funds meet their fund balance policy throughout the forecast. So to summarize the enterprise funds, we will continue to watch revenues in the economy closely. We will manage capital outlay to minimize debt service costs. We will ensure responsible timing of rate adjustments and plan for future debt issuances if necessary. And with that, I will turn the presentation back over to Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. So on your desk, we provided a CIP binder that we'll be reviewing on the budget workshop on March 3rd. Just give you some contents of what's in the binder. We have the first tab is a summary by project type, so like arts, public safety, water. The next tab is summary by fund. And then from there, we have the individual tabs. So the first document within that department tab or project type tab is a change document. Then we go to the summary by fund per project type, and then the summary by the individual projects. And then behind that are the individual project details. And as we mentioned 2 weeks ago with the new system, the project detail page has been updated to have some more information that hopefully you guys find helpful, some more background information on the particular project. And if you have any questions as you guys review the binder, feel free to reach out to the city manager's office. And then with that, we'll have any questions.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If we could flip back all the way to page 23, the pie chart. I have a question that didn't come up to be answered along the way. There's quite a bit of discussion in the community and the legislature regarding food tax. And I trust from here that our revenue from food tax is either in the big blue part, city sales tax, or the tiny gray part, other. But the real question is, generally speaking, what does our income for the city from the food tax amount to in dollars?
Vice Mayor, council members, Councilmember Turner. So last year, it was about $21 million, $22 million that the city collected on its food tax.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councilmember Tomachoff.
Thank you. I don't have a question, I have a comment. I want to thank you and your staff for getting us these CIP binders so far ahead of the March 3rd CIP meeting. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. It's definitely with the investment in the new budget system, which we presented, I think that was 2 weeks ago, we were able to produce reports much faster than we had in prior years. So we're super happy about it as well.
Awesome. Any other questions from council?
Just a comment. Data's only good if you can actually access it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I know that's a very complicated process, and we have lots of questions for you, so thank you for your preparation and for all you've done. Ms. Bowers, will you please introduce item number 3?
Council item of special interest, Citizen Bond Election Committee roles.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council, or Vice Mayor, I guess, members of the council. This is a follow-up item to the workshop that we had on 2 weeks ago, the 13th. Councilmember Malnar had a council item of special interest regarding the bond committee and the roles of the bond committee. And during that workshop, we were asked to meet with a smaller group of the council consisting of Vice Mayor Malnar, Councilmember Guzman, and Councilmember Tomatroff, and to explore some options and identify how to potentially expand boards and commissions' engagement in the bond process. So we did a little research and brought this to that smaller group, specifically to say, well, what can the Library Advisory Board, for example, do? And this is taken from the enacting legislation that created the Library Advisory Board, and it says they can recommend changes required to strengthen programs or reduce service levels, and that they can recommend, assist and advise the city manager and the library director in establishing priorities at budget time for those items other than administrative functions related to library policy. Similarly, with your Parks and Recreation Commission, their specific duties say they can assist with establishment of policies, rules, and regulations relating to the planning, acquisition, disposition, operation, use, care, and maintenance of areas and structures owned, leased, or otherwise acquired by the city for use as parks and recreation centers, and that they can also assist and make recommendations on establishing priorities at budget time. The reason I felt like that was important was to see within that framework of the duties and responsibilities of those two committees, is there room for them to do some work on bonds in particular? And I think that there is, and I've talked with the city attorney's office about this, and together we came up with some options for how council could use those two committees to get their engagement in the bond process. And so what we came up with is a model under which you would reestablish the bond committee and then direct the bond committee to go get that sort of input from the Library Advisory Board and the Parks and Recreation Commission. That would then basically use them to increase, both the Library Advisory Board and the Parks and Recreation Commission, use them to increase public engagement on the issue of the bonds. This option doesn't, the way I've laid it out, and I'll show you a little bit more about it in a moment, but it doesn't require council to then authorize the bond committee to have subcommittees, because under this model, they would just remain the committees that they already are and do this as part of their committee work in the way that they are. It doesn't have to change anything in their formation. The Library Advisory Board and the Parks and Recreation Commission would then make recommendations to the bond committee. They would operate, like I said, much as they are today. Their individual quorums would stay the same. Their individual members, as you appoint them, would stay the same. It also allows for the bond committee to contemplate other possible ballot recommendations, more than just libraries and parks. They could consider things like the operations campus, public safety, or any others. And then the bond committee would ultimately make a recommendation to you based on the input they receive from the Library Advisory Board, the Parks and Recreation Commission, plus their own deliberation and meetings. And then they would make those recommendations to you. Now, council always has the final decision-making authority about calling an election or not. But this is a way to get input from those committees. So this again is sort of how we structured it, or how we're recommending to structure it. Again, it's up to you, but the bond committee would have the following duties: to make a recommendation to the city council regarding the following questions. Should the city call for an election for general obligation bonds in November? If they recommend that, the council called the election. They would make a recommendation about what categories of bonds should be included in the election questions, the dollar amounts of the bonds, and which projects in the 10-year CIP should be highlighted in the publicity pamphlet. Remembering and keeping in mind that ultimately what we issue those bonds for is pretty broad. We don't want to hamstring ourselves and say, oh, it can only be these projects. Those projects are meant to be as samples, but they would recommend to you which ones to be those sample projects and those projects to be highlighted. Again, it would direct the bond committee to obtain a recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Commission. And the Parks and Recreation Commission would answer these same exact questions. So should the city council include a question related to Parks and Recreation? And if they do recommend including that question, what dollar amount should be requested and which projects of theirs would they think should be highlighted in those publicity pamphlet and the educational materials? And then the same for the Library Advisory Board. They would be answering the question, should the city council include a question related to library bonds? And if they include library bonds, what dollar amount should the bonds be, and which projects that are in the council 10-year CIP should be included in those educational materials and the publicity pamphlet. So I'm going to just go back and recap again. This would mean leaving the bond committee in its current form, having them have some specific, it would be reforming it into a new form specific to answering these questions. So we would do away with the old bond committee, we would form this new committee, and the new committee would have these charges that I outlined, those specific duties and responsibilities. One of the things that we had discussed last week is the way that the bond committee was formed was so wide open, it was hard to get to, well, what is it exactly they're supposed to be doing? So this sort of takes care of that concern. And then they would be charged with going to the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Library Advisory Board and getting answers to those questions and a recommendation. Those boards would recommend to the bond committee. The bond committee would take that into account. They could decide to do something different than what was recommended by those, or the same thing, and then they would pass that recommendation to you, and then ultimately you would decide what's really going to be on the ballot or not, and all of those questions. We think that by doing this way, we can meet these deadlines, so that's why I have this calendar up there. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Library Advisory Board both meet the first week of every month, so we would just go meet with them. The staff would, piggyback on their existing meetings with their existing quorums and their minute taking and all of that, and start doing similar to what we do with the bond committee, where we do Bond 101 and what is a bond, and we talk to them about the projects and how much authority is remaining in their particular type of bonds. Doing the educational piece and then asking for a recommendation later after they have additional information and after a survey is done. So we think in doing that we can meet all of the deadlines that we laid out last time, and it's just an efficient use of the Library Advisory Board and the Parks and Recreation Commission. So if council likes this and kind of continues down this path, we are kind of looking for a consensus. This item is on the agenda for tonight. Again, it would basically revoke the bond committee in its current form, but you'd immediately turn around and appoint a new bond committee. We put into the ordinance the declaration of an emergency so it can take effect right away, so there's no 30-day delay, which would also make it very difficult for us to meet some of those deadlines. It would form this new bond committee that has those specific duties and answers those specific questions, and it directs the bond committee to go get that input on those specific questions from Library Advisory Board and Parks and Recreation Commission. And so we're kind of looking for a consensus. It's on the voting meeting. If there's not a lot of consensus to do it, we can always pull it off the meeting, but it is on your agenda to to potentially approve tonight. So with that, I'll answer any questions anyone has.
Councilmember Cochas.
Yeah. Yes, Vice Mayor. I wanted to thank Vice Mayor and also Councilmember Tomachoff and Councilmember Guzman for putting this ordinance together. After reviewing the tape from the last meeting, I'd realized that there was a great consensus to, that my idea was a really bad idea, which I appreciate. Not all ideas are good ideas, right? But I think it really created some focus, and I appreciate how this is laid out. And I look forward to having a Cactus District resident on the bond committee. Thank you.
Councilmember Turner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I really like this strategy. I think I think it will work. I think it also indicates how much we do actually value the input from our boards and commissions, specifically this time around with Library and Parks and Rec. I realize this is a PowerPoint presentation and not final language perhaps, but I haven't read the ordinance tonight. But I think it's a little strong to say seek and obtain a recommendation, because they could have they could have a tie vote, they could have a lack of a quorum or something like that. So I think the bond committee should seek and consider recommendations. But I could see it getting hamstrung if we insist that they obtain the recommendation. So that's the only thing I would change about this at this point. Thank you.
All right, anyone else have any comments? I have just one legal question for our attorney. Since we will be voting on this evening, and we also have recommendations for the bond committee, can we make the appointments to the bond committee before we approve this new ordinance?
Mayor and council, I believe so. It's the governing document regarding the committee, and we're not technically terminating the committee. We're just providing a subsequent document that actually provides more direction to them.
I thought the language was to revoke the current bond committee. That's what the consensus is for today.
It's to revoke the ordinance
of the bond committee.
Of the bond committee and replace it with another one. You can't act on an ordinance without doing something with the existing.
Okay, so the old ordinance will still be in place when we make appointments.
The old ordinance will go away, and this is the new ordinance governing it, and then the board, pursuant to the terms of it, the bond committee will actually terminate once there's an election on there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Which is in accordance with our code.
All right, any other questions or comments? Do we have consensus then to revoke the current bond committee and form a new bond committee and give them directions as laid out here in the
Yes.
presentation? Yes. Looks like we have consensus. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a manager's report?
Thank you, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Yes, a few things I'd like to highlight tonight. First, starting with congratulations to our transportation department. The city of Glendale has earned the 2025 Best in Arizona honor at the ASU Pavement Materials Conference, recognizing the city's outstanding work with surface treatments. Over the past year, Glendale's transportation team completed more than $4 million in roadway improvements, finishing projects nearly 1/3 faster than planned. Just a decade ago, street conditions ranked among the top concerns shared by residents when they talked to council members. This award is a good reminder of how far Glendale's infrastructure investment plan has come. Next, more than 200 volunteers joined our community services team for its annual MLK Day of Service, honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In a uniquely Glendale way, community members gathered at the Manistee Ranch and Saguaro Ranch parks to glean the citrus fruit, which was then boxed and donated to St. Mary's Food Bank. More than 7,000 pounds of fruit were gleaned and donated. Next, highlighting a few developments along the economic development front. We had a busy month filled with grand openings, ribbon cuttings, and groundbreakings, including Vallarta Supermarkets opened its first Arizona location. They are located at 59th Avenue in Camelback and employ over 200 people. We also celebrated ribbon cutting for Penco, a family-owned manufacturer of water and wastewater treatment chemicals. The plant is located at 51st Avenue in Camelback, and this is the first Arizona operation for Penco. Next, Cornish Pasty Company, Arizona's beloved 20-year staple known for its authentic, crispy, and tightly packed traditional pastries, is now open in downtown Glendale. Grand opening details will be provided soon. The shop is located at Glendale and 57th Avenue, and I will say my wife will not be letting me go there. And last, Van Trust Real Estate held a groundbreaking ceremony of VT 303 North to 66-acre industrial property located at Northern and Reams, and will be developed into 1.1 million square feet of speculative office building space. This development represents yet another significant investment from the Van Trust team in Glendale. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney's report. Do you have
No
anything?
report, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is council items of special interest. The next item is to allow the council to bring items of special interest, an opportunity to indicate topics they would like to have discussed by the council at a future workshop. So, Councilmember Baldonegro, do you have any?
None today, sir.
Councilmember Conchas.
None today.
Councilmember Guzman.
None today, sir.
Councilmember Tomachoff.
Yes, Vice Mayor, just a reminder that the council had a special interest regarding the limiting the number of code complaints residents were allowed to make. We had that robust discussion, and we were asked to give 90 days. It's been 90 days, so hopefully staff can get that on an agenda here coming soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Turner.
Nothing today, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, and I don't have anything today. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So, second?
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Turner, second by Councilmember Tomachoff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries. This council meeting is recessed.